This is a serious video containing detailed descriptions of intimate partner violence as well as emotional abuse. Shia LaBeouf, the actor and singer FKA Twigs, have been locked in what many are calling a legal battle for years now, but it's really just one woman trying to stand up for herself in court while being given the runaround by a man who has admitted to doing some of the most heinous stuff to her. Shia LaBeouf being a bad person is no secret at this point, but the details of this abuse came flooding back to the mainstream because FKA Twigs just went viral on TikTok for a clip in which she talked about it. This comes just days after it was announced that their trial date has been pushed back once again, and so that prompted me to go back and look at this whole story from beginning to end. That way I could really contextualize these recent updates. So today we'll see not only what FKA Twigs and others have alleged, but also Shia LaBeouf's repeated attempts to dodge responsibility while also going through this redemption arc where people are hyping him up for taking accountability, which is something that he has actually never done. So this has all been playing out in the public eye since 2020. FKA Twigs is a singer who makes experimental pop music, and Shia LaBeouf is a big name actor and has been ever since he was a child. In 2020, FKA Twigs sued Shia LaBeouf, accusing him of relentless abuse, sexual battery, assault, and infliction of emotional distress. In one incident described in this lawsuit, she accused him of choking her and then falsely imprisoning her in a car when she tried to escape. And this gas station incident was just one of many cases where she alleged intense abuse was taking place.
He was threatening to crash the car unless I said I loved him, and ended up basically strangling me in public at a gas station, and nobody did anything. That was a really low moment for me because I felt like I would never be believed.
So besides the physical abuse, she alleges that he was controlling, intimidating, and isolating her, and all of this started affecting her ability to do her job, and that is why she is suing him for damages. She said she was struggling to fulfill her professional duties, and her album was released and delayed multiple times, and a tour was rescheduled at great cost. Twigs pointed out that she actually did have the resources to leave, but none of that was a match for the mental abuse that was convincing her she had to stay. The whole time I was with him, I could have bought myself a business flight plane ticket back to my 4-story townhouse in Hackney, and yet she didn't, the New York Times says. He brought me so low below myself that the idea of leaving him and having to work myself back up just seemed impossible. The same tired questions are brought up. Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you go to the police, etc.? But these are things that are only easy to ask when you're not in that position. Many people don't even have the resources and funds to get out of the scenario, but even that is not a guarantee that you will make it. There are plenty of stories of talented people, talented women who are rich and powerful, and none of that power or talent means anything in the moment when they are being abused. I'm called to mind of people like Rihanna and what she experienced at the hands of Chris Brown, or the Ugandan athlete Rebecca Cheptegei, who was set on fire and killed by her partner. Wealth, Olympic athlete status, none of this really means anything because oftentimes abuse is about an undermining of power, stopping people from realizing their agency, taking things from them, cutting them down at any opportunity, making it feel like their fault and they have an obligation to stay. As for Twigs, she wasn't even the only woman named in the lawsuit who had these problems. Another ex-girlfriend of Shia LaBeouf said that LaBeouf headbutted her enough that she bled, and even that woman said so much goes into breaking down a man or woman to make them okay with that certain kind of treatment. So when the New York Times asked LaBeouf for a response, he plainly admitted to being abusive and hurting people. I'm not in any position to tell anyone how my behavior made them feel. I have no excuses for my alcoholism or aggression, only rationalizations. I have been abusive to myself and everyone around me for years. I have a history of hurting the people closest to me. I'm ashamed of that history and I'm sorry to those I hurt. There is nothing else I can really say. But then he did have more to say, because in a separate email, he said this: many of these allegations are not true, but he owed the women the opportunity to air their statements publicly and accept accountability for those things I have done. He then goes on to talk about how he completed a 12-step program and he's sober now and managing his PTSD and alcoholism, but he will forever be sorry to the people that he may have harmed along the way. So notice how in one breath he has no defense, but then in another breath, most of what Twigs is saying is not true. This same story is actually going to change a couple more times over the years, but it's worth noting that he has been caught on camera being abusive to his now wife, Mia Goth. So Mia Goth is another actress, and about 9 years ago, an argument was filmed where he was trying to pull bags out of a trunk, and he starts berating her and threatening her.
I don't want to touch you. I don't want to be aggressive. This is the kind of that makes a person abusive.
This is the kind of thing that makes someone abusive. abusive. He's not only emotionally abusing her by threatening her, but he's positioning it as her fault. This undercurrent of why are you making me do this is all too familiar. Note that he does this with no problem in front of a bunch of other people that have surrounded him. And later, when Mia seems to be gone, he tells these people that he would have killed her had they not intervened.
Yo, if I'd have stayed there, I would kill her.
Honestly, the whole situation with those two is incredibly concerning because Shia LaBeouf first met Mia Goth when she was 19 years old and he was 26. They met on a film set and then he's threatening to abuse her on camera, and then they break up, and during that period, he admits to abusing Twigs, and he also dated one other woman who said he abused her. And now Mia Goth is not only back together with Shia LaBeouf, married, but they have a child as well. Yes, she's a 31-year-old woman who can make her own choices, but that doesn't change the fact that she's been in a relationship with an abuser ever since she was 19 years old. But believe it or not, despite all of this evidence and his own admissions, the year after Twigs' lawsuit, he then tried to say everything she said was false. Shia LaBeouf denies each and every assault allegation by FKA Twigs, seeks to have her pay his costs. His lawyers denied that Twigs had sustained any injury or loss, and they denied that she's entitled to any relief or damages whatsoever. They went on to assert that her sexual battery claims should be dismissed because none of the acts alleged were based on sex and or the conduct was not sexual. But here's where it somehow gets even worse. While he's in court denying everything, Shia LaBeouf is out and about saying plainly he put his hands on her. So in 2020, he admits it and then says most of it's not true. 2021, he says actually none of it's true. And then in 2022, he goes on the podcast and says, yeah, I put my hands on her. His appearance on Real Ones with John Bernthal actually went quite viral at 10 million views. And this is a highly lauded video in which many people praise Shia LaBeouf for his honesty while failing to realize he's either lying in this interview or lying in court. And notice how vague he manages to be while still being praised for taking accountability.
You know, I wanted to air it out and talk about specifics, and like none of it really matters. You know, I hurt that woman, you know, and in the process of doing that, I hurt many other people.
This is the kind of thing that sounds like taking responsibility if you're not listening, even though that was really just an excuse to not say any of the things he did. But when he actually does mention what he did much later in the interview, he can't even really say it.
My acting wasn't collaborative. It was competitive. And my life was this way. And this is what created the insecurity and the jealousy that put hands on this woman. The man that was involved in that relationship was constantly comparing himself to other people.
Acting did not make you insecure, which manifested in a jealousy that put its hands on FKA Twigs. Let's just cut the double talk. You beat women. You are a small person and you choose to demonstrate that by beating women. 2 hours of rationalizing this and trying to present it as something he's really changed and grown from when you can't even say what you did in the interview. You can't even part your lips to admit to actually hitting anybody, but rather it was jealousy that did that. That's not accountability. And yet, because the law and society at large has more empathy for abusers than the abused, Shia has been able to strangely rewrite his abuse into some sort of badge of honor, showing just how far he's come. I'm almost speechless with how raw and inspirational this was. Shia is a real one. This is how a person makes things right. He's human, he's flawed, he's learning, and he's real. Thank you, Shia. This one's actually terrifying. As a woman who suffered abuse at the hands of a man, I can honestly say that this conversation made me believe that even a man who puts his hands on a woman can, if given the chance, become a better person. I hope that he, like Shia, can become a better person and love people the way you should love people. People are using this 2-hour sham to justify the abuse that's happening in their life because they are falling for what Shia is saying, and that is incredibly disappointing. Now, to all the people in the comments who are dealing with alcoholism and addiction problems, and who were able to find something from this interview that helped them along their path towards sobriety, those aren't the people I'm criticizing. Really, my problem is with Shia and how completely his strategy of turning this into some sort of benefit for him has worked. If denying it is impossible, then admit it so blatantly that you get lauded for being honest. It's just kind of easy to see through, and it's resulted in people excusing the most insane things.
I've gotten cold sores my whole life. I never told any of my sexual partners about getting cold sores. You know, you can't make amends for permanent damage like that, you know, and so my daughter now has become this opportunity for me.
As you can see, somebody who immediately mentions their daughter as a chance to redeem themselves for lying to their sexual partners is not somebody who has done the correct amount of work. So to be applauded for it the way he has is completely unearned. It's worth noting that Twigs, in her 2020 lawsuit, accused him of knowingly giving her a sexually transmitted disease, which is behavior very consistent with his admission that he gave people cold sores without telling them. And the more Shia manipulates the truth at the drop of a hat into anything that will make him look better, FKA Twigs has just been telling the same story for years now in more and more detail.
But I would really doubt myself, you know, especially when I'd like wake up and he'd be like, you were lying there with your eyes open planning to leave me, and I'd be like, I literally was asleep.
Looking at Twigs' story provides such a clear answer to why didn't she leave? That's not a question anybody should be asking, and this is why. It's not about one's ability to leave. Abusers will literally distort reality into a scenario where leaving doesn't even seem like an option because you can't trust yourself about anything. And all of that combines with fear in a way that really traps people. As she said in an interview with Elle called "It's a Miracle I Came Out Alive," LaBeouf would allegedly force her to watch true crime documentaries about women being murdered, bludgeoned, dismembered, or raped. He kept a loaded firearm by the side of the bed, and it was to the point where she thought she needed to leave clues in case she was murdered, that way people could piece it together. And he would just straight up brag about shooting stray dogs. LaBeouf would shamelessly brag about shooting stray dogs. He said it helped him get into character as a gun-toting henchman for his role in 2020's The Tax Collector. Twigs said, "That's really bad. Why are you doing that?" And he was like, "Because I take my art seriously. You're not supporting me in my art. This is what I do. It's different from singing. I don't just get up on the stage and do a few moves. I'm in the character." He made me feel bad. Like I didn't understand what it was like to be an actor or to do this method acting. Whether Shia LaBeouf was actually shooting dogs or this was another thing he lied about to intimidate her, this is insane behavior that she is alleging here. And even if you don't want to believe allegations, believe his own insane behavior of giving people cold sores knowingly, putting his hands on them and rationalizing it to where actually it's my jealousy doing this, saying I hurt people close to me in one breath and then turning around and saying actually those people have lied about everything. Shia LaBeouf is insane, he is unhinged, and he can't keep his story straight to save his life. Now, what's incredibly frustrating is this lawsuit hasn't even gone to trial yet. Despite the allegations being in 2020, it got a 2023 trial date, which was then postponed to October 2024, so it actually should have just happened. And this whole time, Twigs claims that his lawyers have been giving her a hard time, requesting her complete medical history, as well as all of her financial information from 2017 to the present, because, as her lawyers say, Shia is arguing that if Twigs is working and making income, then she does not suffer from emotional distress. But then, despite the fact that their trial was supposed to be this month, FKA Twigs gets new trial date after hopeless mediation with Shia LaBeouf, and it is now set for September 29th, 2025. And what's disturbing is that Twigs alleges Shia has been using all this extra time to destroy evidence and mess up the case. Besides being evasive and non-responsive, he suspiciously claimed he no longer has any other responsive documents in his possession or control, as he misplaced his electronic devices or destroyed relevant information prior to the initiation of this action. Suspiciously is a very charitable reading of somebody claiming they just so happened to destroy evidence before a lawsuit. Definitely not in the years and years that things have been postponed. But actually, in an incredibly predictable move, LaBeouf decides to blame FKA Twigs for the date change. Attorneys for LaBeouf fired off their own salvo, claiming that Twigs is working so much that she has been too busy over the past 2 years to even appear for her deposition. Again, it's her fault that this trial hasn't happened yet. It's Mia Goth's fault if he puts his hands on her because she's making him abusive. It's acting's fault for making him competitive and putting his hands on people. Shia LaBeouf is an abuser through and through, by his own admission and just by the fact that he is incapable of taking responsibility. He cannot take responsibility. It's very clear over the past few years. He is the textbook definition of an abuser, and that's something that FKA Twigs actually talks about. This is the clip that went viral on TikTok. It's barely been a day and it's already racked up a bunch of attention, and this is from her appearance on the Man Enough podcast.
I'm so grateful to have learned so much about the way that abusers operate. But I was so disappointed to learn how boring it is because they all operate the same.
I am actually so glad that this clip is making the rounds, because I feel like if even one more person hears what she's about to say, this could unironically save somebody's life.
You know, I think one of the most painful things was realizing that I wasn't special, that I wasn't in a relationship where it was this thing that we could struggle through together and it was me and him against the world and it was just our energy that no one would understand because this is us. It was not about me. It's about food. I'm just supply. I could have been anyone.
The playbook never, ever changes. It's always the same. The moment you try to rationalize it, you lost.
I could have walked into that room one day, or another young actor, singer, artist could have walked in the room that day. It could have really been anyone. It was just bad luck that I got a part in a film. That's honestly how I feel now. I choose not to take it personally.
Abusers are people who are taking their intense problem and making it about you and making it feel like it's your fault that it's about you. But this entire thing is an exercise for them. I'm very glad that FKA Twigs is using her platform to speak up. It's not something she owes anybody, but I'm glad because it's something she wanted to do. In her initial lawsuit, she said, "I'd like to be able to raise awareness on the tactics that abusers use to control you and take away your agency." She also said she plans to donate a significant portion of any monetary damages to domestic violence charities. It was actually very expensive and a massive undertaking of time and resources to get out, she said in an interview. So that bears pointing out. FKA Twigs is massively privileged compared to most people who wind up in this situation, but that is exactly why we should be paying attention to this situation. Despite her privilege, this still happened. That's what I feel like is difficult to explain about abuse. People start trying to connect it to other things. Why didn't you? Why didn't you? It is its own thing. It's a very complete and utter state of being that is depressingly separate from one's financial position, status in life. And FKA Twigs acknowledges, "What I went through with Shia was the worst thing I've ever been through in the whole of my life. I don't think people would ever think that it would happen to me, but I think that's the thing. It can happen to anybody." And that's why I'm glad she would use the money from the scenario to donate to people who don't even have that. And even though she's handling all of this well, she's doing this in spite of her insecurity of not being taken seriously. She said, "I just thought to myself, no one is ever going to believe me. I'm unconventional and I'm a person of color who is a female." And there are already examples of each of these things being used against her. She and Kendall Jenner and Jeremy Allen White all did a campaign for Calvin Klein. And just this year, the UK's Advertising Standards Authority banned only her ad. They said it presented her as a stereotypical sexual object, whereas Jenner's was okay because it did not focus on her body in a manner that portrayed her as an object. You have her being called a thing, while Kendall Jenner, on the other hand, is totally in the clear. Having to put out a statement about yourself and say, "I do not see the stereotypical sexual object that they have labeled me. I see a beautiful, strong woman of color whose incredible body has overcome more pain than you can imagine. And in light of reviewing other campaigns past and current of this nature, I can't help but feel there are some double standards here." So yeah, I think being a person of color is a relevant thing to bring up. I think the way she presents herself and her alt presentation is a relevant thing to bring up. She is unconventional. She's not interested in conforming to the way people think she should act or look, and we can cite sources of people trying to make this a problem for her. Couple that with the gender bias that goes on in the courts where women are typically not believed. Again, there's more sympathy for abusers than the abused. It's completely backwards. And it always, like clockwork, turns into the same story. Oh, she announced a new album just last month, as if she hasn't been dealing with this in the public eye since 2020. Like, the trial hasn't even started yet, and I'm already seeing glimpses of this idea that Shia LaBeouf is this big name artist and FKA Twigs is just some greedy woman who wants money. Look at this headline from In Touch. Shia LaBeouf's ex, FKA Twigs, demands $10 million in damages, permission to inspect actor's cell phone, and court battle. It's already begun. She's unreasonable. She's demanding things. Men work really hard and women just take it, right? That's kind of this idea that we're going with. As if she is not an incredibly acclaimed singer with her own career who was fine before Shia LaBeouf was there and will be fine afterwards. $10 million in damages isn't because she needs the money. She's not keeping the money. It's obviously not about that. It's just about standing up for herself. Despite the things that people are about to ignore about Shia LaBeouf just so they can excuse not believing her, one would still want to believe that some form of accountability can happen. FKA Twigs is not trying to ruin Shia LaBeouf's life, as if $10 million really means anything to someone like that. She's just standing up for herself. And she's trying her best to stand up for other people. And I guess more than anything, I just wanted to say, I appreciate that. It's not even a case of like, do I believe or disbelieve her? I know that countless people have actually lived the truth that she is telling. And so I am very grateful that she's telling it. Anyway, I do prefer my more lighthearted videos for sure, but this is an important topic. I think it's really important to remember anytime you hear like abuse allegations, grooming allegations, it is literally always this serious for somebody. I think these things often get turned into like internet talking points or like an argument against somebody in a larger picture of how you don't like them. But please just always remember that behind all of these stories, there is a single person who at the end of the day only ever wanted somebody to empathize with them. And so hopefully through this video, you were able to sort of see where Twigs is coming from. And I look forward to our next video where we can talk about more lighthearted things at the right time. Thank you for watching.